Sorry, folks, we're just running a few minutes behind this evening. I'm going to go ahead and call this October 1st, 2018 meeting of the Whitefish City Council to order. Thanks everyone for attending. This evening we will start with our Pledge of Allegiance, and I'll ask Anne Moran to lead us tonight. Thank you, Annie. We'll move on to communications from the public, and this is time set aside for the public to comment on items that are on the agenda but not advertised as a public hearing. We do have one public hearing tonight regarding our revised water and wastewater service rates and policy, so I would just ask for you to hold your comments until I call that specific public hearing. But now would be your time if you have anything to share with the council, and your name and address for the record, please, when you approach the podium. Any public comment tonight? No, it does not. It can be anything you'd wish to bring to the council's attention.
And whoa. For giving me the opportunity to speak to you. My name is Alyssa LaChance. I own Dirt Rich Compost and Food Scrap Pickup in Columbia Falls, but I service residents and businesses all around the Flathead and Glacier National Park. I believe I speak for many residents in and around Whitefish when I say it's time for us to focus on creating more available recycling options in the city. I have countless people who call or email me to ask for my food scrap pickup services, so many it's hard for my company to keep up with the demand. There's an explosion of demand this last year alone as many new people moved to the valley who are used to these services being provided where they came from, no question. Some of the people who call for information either aren't able to afford our residential pickup service, or single folks who don't produce enough waste for a weekly pickup with us. These are the people that well-intentioned end up trying to compost themselves and end up doing it either incorrectly or in areas that need more protection from wildlife. At the best, this is a nuisance for neighbors, and at the worst, it's a prime wildlife attractant. Having a single location or multiple regulated locations where people can drop off their food waste and other recyclables besides what's already provided, so mostly glass, for proper processing is becoming increasingly important for our city, especially as more people visit and move to the valley. Please consider this a priority for the city moving forward. Thank you for your time.
Thanks very much for your comments. Further public comment tonight? Marcia.
Good evening. Marcia Sheffels, 450 Parkway Drive, Whitefish. Good evening again. I want to thank you for the civil discourse that we'll see tonight and that we see all the time from you, especially during these times when we aren't always witnessing civil discourse. So thank you. Monks Bay, I'm back about Monks Bay. A week after we had the fireworks display in Monks Bay, we had very low flying, floating firefighters on the lake. And while they're doing public service, I understand, but there were two of them, and they were flying dangerously low over the homes that we have in Monk's Bay so that they could demonstrate what they do in front of the lodge. There were a lot of people gathered at the lodge. The two planes did do some practice work earlier on the lake, and then they used Monk's Bay and came, again, dangerously close over our homes to be able to demonstrate going down, shedding the water, and going back up. Monk's Bay is the most shallow bay, and Whitefish is a very small lake. This was a national convention hosted by the lodge. Thank you.
Thanks, Marcia. Further comments tonight from the public? Not seeing any, we'll move on to volunteer boards, and we'll stay with the audience. I know Anne's here representing the Library Board of Trustees with a request to appoint Chris, and I pronounced the name hopefully correctly, Learbo, to the Whitefish Community Library Board of Trustees, serving a 5-year term, which would end on June 30th, 2023. Annie.
Annie Moran, 432 West 3rd, Chair of the Whitefish Library Trustees. And just a couple of comments. In the list that you received, we only have one vacancy right now. We recently appointed Cheryl Highland, and my term ends in 2021, not 2023. I'm not sticking around till 2023. And because we are both making a recommendation for a new trustee and saying goodbye to someone who did an enormous amount of volunteer work on behalf of the city, I'd like to take just a minute and read this letter into the record. I had hoped that Allison could join us tonight, but I couldn't reach her. This is Dear Mayor Molefield and Whitefish City Councilors. Longtime trustee Allison Pomerantz recently completed her second term on the Whitefish Community Library Board of Trustees. We would like to take this opportunity to recognize the outstanding service of our outgoing trustee. Allison was one of the original team who transitioned the Whitefish Community Library to an independent city library back in 2010-11. For over a year, our trustees met weekly to effect that transition, with each of us taking on numerous additional duties, none more readily than Allison, who served as our initial board secretary and was utterly dependable and responsive in that role for her entire tenure. She documented the WCL's activity in hundreds of pages of agendas and minutes, as well as dozens of beautifully written press releases and feature articles. Even after her retirement from our board, Allison continues to help us with PR. Whitefish is a lucky community to have such dedicated volunteers. We would like to extend our deepest thanks to Ms. Pomerantz and commend her service to the mayor and council. Per the requirements of our bylaws, at September 2018 meetings of the Whitefish Community Library Trustees, the trustees interviewed applicants who had expressed interest in being appointed to Ms. Pomerantz's former trustee position. The trustees are pleased to recommend that Ms. Chris Learbo be appointed to fulfill the seat formerly occupied by Ms. Pomerantz. Ms. Learbo is a longtime and dedicated library patron who will bring critical and timely skills to the Board of Trustees. While there are many wonderful opportunities for growth at the WCL, the trustees' most pressing obligation right now, from both the taxpayers and library operations viewpoint, must be a coordinated effort to preserve and extend the life of our beloved facility, which is now approximately 30 years old. With proper planning and stewardship, we hope our facility and its infrastructure will last another 30 years, but the trustee team needs to position itself to support that goal. We feel Chris's history in the construction, contracting industry, and her innate attentiveness to budget processes will bring much-needed perspectives toward meeting these goals. We were so pleased to have some excellent applicants for this position. We look forward to coming back to you soon with a candidate recommendation for our new trustee in training or trustee alternate position, and we will continue to work with all interested trustee candidates to ensure that their interest in the WCL will continue to be engaged through the numerous avenues we have for volunteering. We greatly appreciate both the City Council's and the City staff's ongoing support for the care and operation of the Whitefish Community Library. Thank you.
Thanks, Annie. On behalf of the City Council staff and the community, a big thanks to Allison. I know she wore multiple hats at the community library, and the 2010-2011 transition was not an easy one. So I credit Allison for that success in part as well. With that said, I will move to appoint Chris Learbo to the Whitefish Community Library Board of Trustees, serving a 5-year term ending on June 30th, 2023. That's a mayoral appointment and just needs the ratification of the city council. By a showing of hands, please. And that's unanimous. Michelle. Thanks very much, Annie. And welcome, Chris, on our behalf, please. We will move on to our consent agenda. You have the September 17th, 2018 meeting minutes in your packet. Any changes or additions, or can I have a motion for approval? Andy.
Just one change in the minutes under, it's page 23 of the packet, page 1 of the minutes. Aaron Harding should be under number 4, public communications, rather than communications from volunteer boards.
Okay, thanks, Andy. You got that, Michelle?
I'll change it.
Okay, thanks.
Just got
move down. Okay. Richard.
One small edit on page 26, second paragraph of councilor comments. Right at the end of that first sentence in that second paragraph, if we could change from of to or.
Thank you, Richard. With those corrections, can I have a motion, please? Andy.
I would move to approve the consent agenda as presented with the amended minutes.
I'll second.
Seconded by Councilor Sweeney. Further discussion on the motion? All those in favor, please raise your hand, and those opposed, like sign, and that motion passes unanimously. Michelle, which brings us quickly to our first and only public hearing tonight, which I imagine is why most of you are here, which will be Resolution 18-42, a resolution revising water and wastewater service rates and policies. Craig.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, members of the public. The City of Whitefish provides water and wastewater services to about 3,500 customers. To address costs attributable to the various customers, the city has a relatively diverse rate structure comprised of 5 different wastewater classes and 3 different water service areas. To evaluate the equitability of the existing rate structure, a cost of service analysis, or COSA, was completed by the city in 2016 to measure the costs attributable to each user class against the amount of revenue provided for each user class. The results of the COSA demonstrated the difference between the cost and revenue models and were used to develop recommended rate approaches to align the two. Given a typically recommended COSA target difference of plus or minus 10%, the detailed COSA results generally showed the following 4 results. First, irrigation rates are not generating enough revenue to keep up with their cost of service. Second, water customers in the high pressure zone are not generating enough revenue to keep up with their cost of service. Third, wastewater customers in the SC1, STEP, and Rest Haven user classes are not generating enough revenue to keep up with their cost of service. And lastly, wastewater customers in the SC2 user class are actually generating revenue at a higher percentage than their associated costs. To address the cost of service inequities, support the funding of the targeted reserve levels, and achieve the overall revenue adequacy for the water utility, rate adjustments for the period of 2017 through 2021 were projected. For the wastewater utility, rate adjustments for the period of 2017 through 2026 were projected. Based on the preliminary engineering estimates, new debt associated with the wastewater treatment facilities were estimated to be in the range of $15 to $20 million, which is still where we are as an estimated cost for that project. Prior to recommending council adopt these forecasted rates, staff has reviewed expenses and revenues for each utility as compared to those projected in the original rate model. While the rate model for the water utility will likely change due to projected capital expenses to upgrade the city's water treatment facility, staff feels proposed rate increases for water are easily justified. It should also be mentioned that as expenses increase for the water utility, this will only add to the originally proposed rate increases for pressure zone and irrigation customers, where the rate model is also working to correct inequities in the COSA analysis for those 2 classes. One final note is that we have historically assumed only 25% of projects be funded by cash, which is considered to be a low cash funding percentage. For example, King County aims at a 40% cash funding for all capital projects. When taking into consideration increased operational costs, funding a higher percentage of projects with cash, and an overall increase in capital expenditures, the proposed rates in the rate model are still considered to be appropriate, and those rates are shown in the enclosed resolution. Customers inside city limits with a 5/8" meter located in service class 1 with the usage of 4,000 gallons of water and wastewater per month will see increases as follows. Monthly domestic water increases will be approximately 0.73% or 30 cents from 41.08 to 41.38. Monthly wastewater costs will increase 13.9% or approximately $6.23 from $44.66 to $50.89. Customers with a landscape irrigation meter with a usage of 10,000 gallons per month will see a rate increase of 4.9% or approximately $2.10 from $42.80 to $44.90. So, based on the recommendations made by AE2S in the Water and Wastewater Financial Plan and Rate Study dated March 2016, and careful review of expenses and revenues for each utility as compared to those projected in the original original rate model, staff respectfully recommends that Council adopt the enclosed resolution, increasing water and wastewater rates to those shown in the published notice.
Thanks very much, Craig. Any questions for our Public Works Director on his staff report or the financial analysis? Not seeing any. We did advertise for a public hearing on what will be our own Resolution 18-42, revising water and wastewater service rates and policies, and we will hold that public hearing now. So now would be your opportunity to approach the council. I do have a short sign-up list. I have Sue Maletta and Dana Leach signed up, but that certainly doesn't preclude you from presenting to the council if you did not sign up. And I believe you gave me a handout earlier that you'd like me to hand to the council. So pass those along.
Good evening, council and staff. My name is Sue Maletta, and I live at 1240 Birch Hill Drive, Whitefish. I'm here this evening to share my findings about our water and sewer rates compared to our neighbors in Columbia Falls, Kalispell, and Evergreen. If you're looking at the handout that I presented tonight, you will see that Whitefish water rate is $3.92 per 1,000 gallons compared to $1.17 in Columbia Falls, $2.43 in Kalispell, and $1.15 in Evergreen. The next line shows that the Whitefish sewer rate is $7.92 per 1,000 gallons compared to $5 in Columbia Falls, $4.78 in Kalispell, and $5.61 in Evergreen. What I'd like you to look at, and should jump out at you a little bit, is the next line, and that is comparing our base rates for water and sewer. If you look under Whitefish category, ours is $37.50 compared to only $10.50 in Columbia Falls, $7.50 in Kalispell, and $4.41 in Evergreen. And the next line compares the base sewer rate, where in Whitefish it's $39.27 for Whitefish compared to $8.85 for Columbia Falls, $8.45 for Kalispell, and $11.49 for Evergreen. In my mind, these base rates for Whitefish residents are really outrageous. Why should we, as Whitefish residents, be paying 400% higher than our neighbors? If you look down to the first bold print that I have on that printout, you will see that Whitefish residents pay $921.24 yearly for base water and sewer rates combined before even a glass of water is drawn or a toilet flushed. Now, I understand we need new wastewater plant. However, gouging the Whitefish residents is totally out of line. Surely our neighbors have had to upgrade their facilities sometime in the past, and yet their base rates don't show this increase. I propose you take a serious look at this information before you once again raise our rates. I've lived in this wonderful city for 53 years, taught first and second grade for 30 years, and now as a senior citizen on a limited budget and fixed income, I'm very concerned about our high taxes and unbelievable water and sewer rates. I'm confident that our competent council members and staff will devise other ways of raising money for new facilities rather than raising rates on our necessary water and sewer. From my point of view, I sincerely hope that you will look at reducing our base rates so that we are somewhere in the neighborhood of what our neighbors are charging. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Sue.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Dana Tolson Leach, and I live at 1034B Mountain Park Drive in Whitefish, and I'm retired. We have newly moved here full-time in November of 2017, and I have spent my career in the electric utility industry, and I currently work part-time for the Kalispel Tribe of Indians as a utility rates advisor for the Kalispel Tribal Utility in Usk, Washington. I sent you a letter concerning the rate increase. It's kind of a long letter, 3.5 pages, so I don't want to go through that tonight. I just wanted to kind of give you the highlights. Like the last speaker, I'm concerned about the rate increase. This looks like it's the 4th in a series of step increases that the consultant recommended in 2016, and I'm not sure that the circumstances continue to justify that. When I looked at the net revenue requirements they proposed in 2018, it was $3 million. And looking at your fiscal year net revenues, operating revenues for the water department, I'm only talking water, you earned $3.9 million. So I just question whether or not the inputs to the financial model are still robust and are still legitimate for the rate increase this time around. Second, I want to talk about, I'm concerned about the way the rates were established for customers that are served with service meters greater than 5/8 inches for 3/4 inch and 1 inch service meters. After looking at it in some more detail, looking at the 2016 study, it looks like the consultants took a shortcut, and when they developed the actual rates by meter size, they applied the American Water Works Association's table of ratios. And I'm not sure that table is appropriate. It's a generic table, and I'm not sure it's appropriate. And so I ask that you have the staff or the city look at the way the differentials in rates by residential customers are developed. And finally, I would like if you could ask the staff to change the format of the bills. It's not clear on the bill what schedule you're under, and so it's not clear how you could save money by saving water. Thank you for listening, and thank you staff also for listening. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Dana. Appreciate your comments. Further public testimony on this item tonight? Any further public comment? Further comments? I'll go ahead and close the public hearing and turn it back to council for a motion or discussion or further questions of staff if you have any. Richard.
I have a question for Craig. Do you know when the last time Columbia Falls, Kalispel, and Evergreen did a rate study, a COS?
I don't. You know, there's industry standards for what triggers a comprehensive rate study. I know that both Columbia Falls and Kalispel already have mechanical wastewater treatment plants. And so they may have been triggered to do a rate study quite some time ago, but typically it's, you know, it's a minimum of every 10 years or when a significant capital project triggers a rate study, and I don't know for either of those communities when that would be. I can tell you that the biggest difference in our water rate structure is simply the fact that the city of Whitefish derives our water source from surface water. We go through a much more elaborate treatment process to treat and distribute water than any of the other communities in the Flathead Valley. You know, so it not only requires significant capital expense to build that plant, but additional staff to manage it, additional analyticals to prove to DEQ that we're doing it properly, et cetera. And so as you look at the statewide water and sewer rates, you know, I can't lie, Whitefish is definitely one of the highest, and that is because of the surface water source.
And to follow up, Columbia, you say Columbia Falls and Kalispell and Evergreen too, I assume, have all mechanical treatment plants, sewer treatment plants?
I believe Evergreen just has a collection system, and they send their wastewater to the city of Kalispell.
Okay, so, and those are plants similar to the ones that we're going to build?
Similar, yeah.
Similar? Okay. So they're already there, and we still have to catch up.
Correct.
Okay.
Frank.
Craig, explain to me again, I know you have done it in the rate study, people came in and tried to explain this, but something I still kind of struggle with, and I think would be helpful for us to air here, would be help me understand why philosophically we should be charging different rates, particularly on sewer, depending upon where you are, because we want people, everyone to be on the sewer system, and it's a collective system that we're using. Different water meters, I kind of get the reason that you would charge different rates there, but what I struggle with, equitably I'll call it, is charging different and significantly higher rates in some areas for sewer than we do in others. I got a hard time with that. I just do. Can you explain to me why that's the right way to do it, and that's the way other cities do it, or the reason a lot of other cities do it? I mean, explain that to me again if you can.
Yeah. So in our wastewater collection system, the city of Whitefish has about 12 sewer lift stations that are publicly owned and maintained. That city staff go out and maintain on a frequent basis. Our sewer rates for the SC 1, 2, and 3 classes are based on the number of lift stations that your sewage has to pass through before getting to the wastewater treatment plant. So, in other words, an SC 1, which is the bulk of the city, simply goes directly to the main lift station and then pumps to the wastewater treatment plant. So there's only one sewer lift station that those customers are essentially responsible for paying for the service of. SC2, there's 2, and SC3, you could go through as many as 3 different lift stations. We also have classes for step systems, which are sewage treatment effluent pumping systems. The city staff has a number of step systems that we go out and we maintain for customers, which is essentially, you know, like having city staff maintain a private septic tank, and it requires an additional level of service, which requires an additional rate. We also have the Rest Haven service class, which obviously serves the population out in Rest Haven. They have an additional length of force main that the city owns and maintains, as well as an additional lift station out of Rest Haven. And then, of course, there's the Big Mountain Sewer District. And so one of the first things we did when we started the 2016 rate study was look at our existing rate structure and try and determine the equitability of charging everybody the same rate. And I think it was decided early on that It wouldn't necessarily be fair to the SC1 and 2 customers to bear the burden of some of those elaborate sewer collection systems that other people have for their homes.
Richard?
I'll make a motion so we can move on
Please
to
do.
some discussion. And I'm gonna, and then I want to talk about it. Move to approve Resolution 18-42, a resolution revising water and wastewater service rates and policies.
Is there a second to the motion?
For purposes of discussion, I will second.
Seconded by Councillor Sweeney, and I'll turn it back to Richard, who would like to speak to his motion.
I would, and I know that raising rates is always unpopular, and I really appreciate, because I've already taken some notes on, Sue, your, where'd you, oh, there you are. I think that was really helpful and informative. I understand, though, that the cost of water in Whitefish, just because of the additional treatment, is going to be inherently higher than our neighboring communities. So too, I think that Kalispell and Columbia Falls have already gone through, from what Craig just said, their water plant, or excuse me, their treatment plant expansions and their mechanical plants. Whether that would eventually bring our rates down, I would very much doubt, but certainly might keep them from going up as precipitously as they have. Going back and taking another look at the cost of service and that rate study that was done in 2016, and we discussed it at that time, and it was difficult then. But I could find no reason or justification for argument against the findings of that study. And as far as you're concerned, Councillor Sweeney, I think that it's, depending upon where you live in a system, some systems, parts of the system are more expensive than others. And to ask some people to bear the cost of people's more expensive treatment or conveyance to the water treatment plant, I don't think is fair either. So those are what I'm struggling with, and that's what I've come around to as I've looked at the rates. And I wish I did have a better answer. I wish I could say, yeah, we'll move all these rates down, but I don't think that would serve the city very well either. So that's the reason for my motion.
Thank you, Richard. Further discussion on the motion? Andy?
Yeah. I have to say, my ox is getting gored harder than anybody in the room because I'm at the highest rate that is in here. And this year, and I don't use much water, about 3,000 gallons a month, and my sewer bill is going to be $1,460 a year. Just my sewer bill alone. That's not the water, that's just my sewer. And if we look at carrying out for all of the steps in increase over the next 4 years, is it, Craig, after this one? Yeah, 4 years?
In wastewater?
Yeah.
No, it goes through 2026.
So, okay, 2026. By 2026, I'm going to be paying over $2,000 a year for just my sewer. Just my sewer. And that's a lot of money. And while I do understand, and I'm making an argument on my case because it's so extreme, but I do understand that we need to charge for systems that cost more money to maintain. If it takes more energy and more mechanical equipment and more repairs and everything to get your effluent to the plant than someone that simply gravity feeds, I kind of understand the rationale there, but then there's a part of me that says, okay, if we break all those numbers out, shouldn't we spread that out equitably amongst the system? Because I'm looking at, for the step system for Backrat, for example, there's like 10 of us. I mean, spread out over the entire system, that's not really going to be very much, and it's true for probably the SC3 users, and if we spread that out, it's not going to, and this doesn't help the people that are saying, gee, you're already going up too much. But for the people that are going up a lot, I think it's something to consider. And I get it, and I understand why we're doing it. I'm going to vote for Richard's motion. And I do understand the rate study, and I've watched this happen over the years. And we don't make money with this, people. I mean, we operate it. That's what we do. We buy plant and equipment, and we hire employees, and we fix it when it breaks. And we buy the chemicals necessary to make it go, and we pay the electrical bill. And we put a little bit of money aside for capital improvement, and boy, that's about it. It's not like this is a profit center for us. And so, I mean, I do have to vote for it, because the rate study people, and I understand looking at standardized applications of ratios for meter size, but that is a pretty standard thing. You got a 5/8 meter, there's X amount that runs through it, and you got a house that uses X amount of gallons, and those things all make sense, and they're applicable pretty much on all systems. But that said, I agree with Sue, our rates are really high. And I understand that they're high for surface water because it does cost a lot more to treat. And we did have to build a very expensive treatment facility to treat that water. We could have possibly gone with wells, but we didn't, as a community chose to do that back in the 90s, and that's where we're at. And as much as I don't like to vote for it, and as much as I understand the cost, and we talk affordable housing and everything else, and I've got one house that is a rental house on our property and that we rent for a very low dollar, and that person pays $170 a month in utilities. Almost 40% of their rent is utility cost. So kind of, I mean, I get it.
You're not charging enough.
Well, maybe not, but you know, there you go. But anyway, like I said, I get it. I'm not happy with it, and I understand the arguments, but I talked in circles, and I apologize, but it's frustrating because there's not a lot we can do.
No, you make some good points, and I rarely, now that the Haskell Basin Conservation Easement Project closes, I rarely bring that up as a case example, but when we were evaluating the purchase of that conservation easement, which essentially developed the development rights, the primary reason was to protect our city's water supply, because we were slowly seeing the lands that contribute to our water supply sold to higher development, Big Mountain, Lookout Ridge, Iron Horse, et cetera. So we are looking out for solutions that are more economically, viable for this community. When we looked at a scenario where we essentially lost our Haskell Basin water source due to contamination, hypothetically, and went to a purely lake water only scenario, that additional cost per year to the city would have been on the order of about $500,000 per year in just operation and maintenance costs to deliver our water to the community, which would have translated to about $140 per residential unit in town. So again, I'm not happy that the rates are going up like they're forecasted to, but we are looking out and we are trying to take proactive moves to mitigate the impact to our users. With that said, are there any additional comments to the motion? Frank.
I guess I'll just reiterate something, and it still gives me some pain, and that is I still challenge the equity. I mean, the cost to operate our system is the cost we have to spread. I get that. Unfortunately, I also understand that there is no magic bullet or a grab bag that we can go get some money from to support that system or to even improve it. We're looking at all those things. I hope the community understands that we are working very hard at that. My heartburn here is with how we equitably distribute those costs. Particularly, at least in my case, I understand, again, the differences. I can conceptually understand the differences with different meters, sizes, and things like, and how you would charge differently for those. I get that. But I have a harder time, given our community's commitment to putting as many people, particularly in and around the lake, on sewer. And yes, we know that around the lake in particular, that we need and want people on sewer. It costs more for our system to operate. I get that. But we as a community collectively ask that and want that. And so I think we as a community collectively should probably share that cost, because we want everybody to participate. We want it to be attractive for those difficult areas to be in. And so if it were my magic wand, and it's harder on the S1 and S2s, I get that, but only marginally. And the benefit to the system and making the system as a whole more attractive, expensive, but more attractive and reasonable, I would argue for that. I'm uncomfortable with the differential we're making between where you live based on what kind of sewer rates we're going to charge. I'm just uncomfortable with that.
Thank you, Frank. Further discussion on the motion? All those in favor, please raise your hand. And those opposed, like sign. And the motion carries on a 4-1 vote with Frank Sweeney voting in opposition. Michelle. Thanks, folks, for coming this evening and sharing your thoughts and concerns with the council. We will move on to item 7A. You have Adam's written report enclosed with the packet. Are there any questions for Adam on his manager's report? Not seeing any. Adam, anything additional to report on?
No, actually a couple things in here. I think I noted in here that we had about 40 RSVPs at the time of this writing. We're up to 46 already for the training coming up on next Tuesday. And so I think that's been going really well. I think we're getting some broad support from everyone in the valley. I think it's going to end up being a good day. So, and I did send out a reminder to those that hadn't RSVP'd yet. So
great. Thanks, Adam. Questions for Adam? And that's the only thing to report on that's new? Okay. We'll move on to item 8, communications from the mayor and city councilors. We do this every year, but a consideration to cancel our second meeting in December, which is scheduled now for December 17th, 2018. If you'd like to cancel the meeting, which has been our tradition, I will need a motion to that effect.
So moved.
Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second.
Seconded by Councilor Sweeney. Further discussion? Frank?
I don't think it would be necessary, but I think, Adam, you should know that if it became necessary, I would at least, I know that everybody here would entertain having that second meeting if it was for some reason necessary, on an emergency basis or otherwise. But that's the only comment I've got.
Thanks, Frank. All those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. Those opposed, like sign, and our second meeting in December is officially canceled. And we'll move on to communications from the city council, and we'll start with Richard, if that's okay.
I think the only thing I have is it possible to make some notations in our water and sewer bills to reflect exactly which area we're in and what our, whether we're on a 5/8 or a 1 inch? I think those were certainly good comments, and I listened carefully to that. Thank you. Because if I look at my water and sewer bill, I'm not sure exactly which. I have a pretty good idea because I'm right on the sewer line, but the main line. But I think a lot of folks wonder, where am I in the system?
Yeah, Richard, we'll contact Black Mountain, the software that we use, and they can update our bill format for us to include that. We have that information obviously in the system, so it should be a figure they can pull to put somewhere on there. But it might take a little bit for us to get that since it's a special request.
Okay. That's all I have.
Thanks, Dana. Thanks, Richard. Andy?
Yeah, just one quick comment, just with the Oktoberfest going on, hopefully everybody goes. I was there on Thursday night for Locals Night, which was tremendously busy. And I've meant to comment on it throughout the summer, just watching the farmer's market and everything, and I'm so happy that we did stick to the Depot Park Master Plan and remove the old BN Credit Union, because that park is really beautiful. The view from the south end or north end of Central Avenue is as it should be now, and the park functions a lot better. And I want to thank T. Bauer for the money that he pledged and ultimately came up and gave us a couple of meetings ago to help with the demolition on that building. So good job for the park board and the Park Depot Master Plan Committee.
Thanks, Andy. Ryan?
No comment.
Thank you, Ryan. Frank?
Nothing further this evening.
Thanks. Thank you, Frank. Melissa?
Nothing for me either.
Thanks. Couple things. I'll be absent from the October 15th meeting. I assume you'll be here, Richard, to preside.
I will.
Okay, thank you very much. What was my second note? So next Tuesday, Adam, is everyone planning on attending the crisis management workshop next Tuesday from the council?
I am, yeah.
Okay, possibly. That's fine. Do what you can do. And what time would you like us here, Adam? Just as a reminder.
Yeah, just before 8:30. It starts at 8:30.
8:30?
Yep.
Okay. And then, just as a reminder, this Thursday, we have an IZ joint meeting with the planning board, correct?
That will be next Thursday, on
Thursday.
October 11th. Yeah.
October
So it's
11th.
the normal meeting time for the Housing Steering Committee.
Okay.
But we've invited the rest of the city council, because there's 3 members already on there. So the rest of the city council and the planning board. And it's just going to kind of be an extension of the work session that we had before, whereas now the presentation's essentially been made. Hopefully we can have more time to dive down in and answer some questions.
The policies and
work some
procedures
things.
section?
Yep.
Okay. So that's October 11th, Thursday at 6 p.m., correct? Okay. I think that's all I had. Anything further from staff?
I have one.
Richard?
Just so the public's aware, Chief Joe Page and I will be on KGEZ next week. Is that Tuesday, Joe? I think it is. At 7:30, talking about the rural-urban fire interface and the possible effects of fire within the city limits of Whitefish.
Neat. What time?
It'll be at 7 o'clock. It's a live presentation, 7 o'clock in the morning, 7:30 in the morning.
Great.
And then we'll be hurrying right back up here. I don't think we get to go red lights and siren, though, do we, Joe, to get up here for the? Oh, maybe we will. Oh, okay.
Anything further from council? Adam, were we good with earlier executive session? Okay.
I think so, yeah.
Great. I do too. With that said, we are adjourned. Thanks, everyone.